Hmm. So, I wanted to do another video. And I guess this would be the first video of length I do on this channel. So I take it this would be a good time to introduce my life. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm in a wheelchair. T4 paraplegic, which means I'm paralyzed basically from right under my chest on down. I got shot in 1991. So about 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago, by a friend of mine. It was a complicated situation that led to the shooting. You know, we never had a conversation on what motivated him to do it. But it happened. And I was 19 when it happened, and he was 14. And at the time, I was like a big homie to him, for lack of a better term. We were friends, much friends as we could be. So I spent 8 months in the hospital after that. 5 in Howard University Hospital, dealing with the wounds and realizing that I would never walk again. And 3 months in a rehabilitation hospital. I had bed sores after 5 months at Howard, and they had to take time to heal that up and then teach me how to live life as a disabled person, or differently able, as we say. So I spent just about all my adult life in a wheelchair, and a lot of people ask me about life and living in a wheelchair, and they asked me about the situation that led to it. And was I angry? Of course I was angry at first. I went through anger, I went through depression, and after 8 months I kind of learned to deal with it. I learned to live again. And the person who actually shot me, I tried to be a friend to him again. A lot of people told me I was crazy for that. Why would you, be friends with somebody who put you in that situation? And my philosophy on that was simply that, even though I was only 19, I had done a lot of wild stuff at that time in my life. For all kind of different reasons. I was in the streets, and I wasn't, no big time drug dealer or gangster or anything like that, but I'd done enough things that my God forgave me for. And it took a lot of forgiveness for some of the stuff I did. And I kind of looked at it like, if I can be forgiven for the stuff I did, it was only right for me to show forgiveness to people on earth. So I chose to forgive him and try to help him. He ended up dying over a different situation that had nothing to do with me. But those last years that we were friends, I tried to be a friend and tried to help him as much as I could. So there was no animosity between us after that. I chose to move on. His little brother's still one of my best friends. So I still love him to this day. And I learned to deal with that. And I didn't leave the streets alone after that, though. That was a crazy thing, At the time, I had 2 kids. I had a daughter that was born while I was in the hospital dealing with the gunshot wounds. And you would think with 3 kids and now a disability, you would kind of get your life together. I was married to the streets, and I wasn't trying to get divorced no time soon. So I buckled down and went harder. And like I said, I wasn't, pushing hard kilos or anything. I was just a regular corner boy, And I had a bunch of friends who, did other things, and I hung with them. And I stayed true to it. And I stayed in the streets from all of the rest of the 90s. I didn't actually leave the streets alone until about 2003. I started trying to get my life together. I signed up for a computer class because, during the 90s and running through the streets, and living in a bunch of wild stuff. Millions of stories of that. But I kept trying to leave the streets alone, but I kept coming back to them. And every time I would come back was when money got low or got bored. I had no other options, you know. I was a kid, and the only job I had up to my life was a paper route that I did for my mother. So I spent most of my life in the streets. And I knew nothing else. So I kept coming back. So about 2001, that was about the time. So 2001, I started thinking about it. Why did I keep coming back to the streets? And what would it take for me to actually leave it alone for good? And I decided that it was just choices. It wasn't about the money or the attention or anything. It was just choices. I wanted to choose what I wanted to eat when I got hungry. When I decided I wanted to go away for a vacation, I wanted to choose. I wanted to have a choice of being able to do what I wanted to do. So the only other thing I knew how to do at that time, besides, commit crime, was fix computers. I couldn't explain to you none of the parts I did with it or how I fixed it. Some strange reason I knew how to fix computers. So I signed up for a class for it. And in that class, they had computer-based training in the lab. Computer-based training wasn't a whole interest to me. I'm a hands-on type of guy. I learn by doing. So I used to go in the lab with the books and take a cool computer apart and go over the pictures, learn what the parts were. And I studied, even while I was on the block. Even when I was out hustling, on the streets, I was still doing homework. It was my exit strategy. I knew I had to make this work. So, matter of fact, a couple of days before 9/11, I got arrested for about the third time that year. And I was already on probation for a drug charge that I caught the year before. And the Friday before 9/11, I went to court and I got scored a new charge. And the judge for the new charge agreed to send me to the halfway house because I was in school. And my probation judge eventually, after a few days of leaving me over to jail, agreed to let me go to the halfway house. So basically that class I signed up kind of saved me from doing jail time again. And I buckled down and went to that class. And by the time I got released from the halfway house, I was finishing up the classes. Got my first job in IT at that school that I went to. And that kind of took my life in a different direction. So I was still kind of dipping and dabbing in the streets. But this computer thing started to take a hold of me. And it finally gave me a chance to do something to make my mother proud, which I hadn't done. And that was one of the things that was eating me. That, my mother had 6 kids, and I was kind of the worst one of the bunch. And I never looked and seen pride in her eyes, to me. It might have been my imagination, but whatever. So, I finished that computer class and kind of tried to go straight. Then I lost my mom in 2005. And that kind of threw me for a real loop. I didn't want to come out the house anymore. I just started drinking. And I started taking ecstasy pills, getting high and drinking. I couldn't deal with the pain. I never had lost anybody that close to me, Had a whole lot of homies that died in the streets. But it was a part of the life we chose. You lose people. My God, brother. Tatted on my arm right there, Fuzz. One of the closest people that I had lost before that. But it's the game we chose. It's the life we chose. You deal with it. So, death is a part of that. Jail, part of that. But losing my mother, that wasn't part of that. And I didn't know how to deal with no pain like that. So for about a year, I just got high. Got drunk. And I think it was about a year after her death. She died in January 2005. So around March, April 2006. Like every other weekend, I was getting high and just staying up all night. Because anybody that take pills, they keep you up all night. So I was up all night, and I was high, and I was on the computer playing Free Cell, and somehow I just happened upon a church service, Jamal Bryant, Empowerment Temple. And for some reason, as high and drunk as I was, what he was preaching about kind of reached me. And for the second time in my life, I kind of felt a tug. And I knew at that point that something was calling me, and everything I was doing, this wasn't what she wanted me to do, wasn't what moms wanted. And I knew I had to get my life together, because if I kept going at that pace, I'd end up a crackhead or something. You know? So, I emailed a best friend of mine that was living in Jacksonville, Florida. And I hadn't talked to her in a couple of years. I asked her, was she still staying with her mom? She said, yeah. I said, babe, I need to get away from here. I do. I need to get away from D.C. I can't change my life here because I done too much dirt over 20-something years. I can't be a different person. The streets in the city won't let me. I'm not strong enough for it. So she told me, yeah, you can come down here. Now, this was a person who, when she lived in the city, in D.C., I partied with her. You know, we got drunk sometimes. We did things. So I knew her as a party girl. No, not freaky party girl, but, you know, party girl. But when she responded to me, she said, well, look, you're welcome to come down here. Moms will let you come stay, but I got to tell you something. I said, what? I'm in church now. Okay. I don't drink anymore. I don't smoke. And you can't drink while you're here. Okay. Sounds like just like what I need. So, I had one of the homies and his cousin take me down on the Amtrak. I was catch the train down to Florida. For some reason, I don't know why, when I went to go buy that ticket to Florida, I didn't buy a round trip. Now, mind you, this was only supposed to be for a couple of weeks to get my head together. I went to Florida on a one-way ticket. And my homie asked me, why'd you only buy a one-way ticket? I said, I don't know. When you coming back? I don't know. Had no reason for it at the time. So, hopped the train, went to Florida. Just like she said, she was in church. And she took me to church. And I seen a pastor there who kind of, you know, I'm kind of skeptical with pastors, you know, with preachers and all that. So, I just sat back in the back of the church and just listened. And he reached me. You know, Clinton Lane, Jacksonville, Florida. Good man. So, life started to take a turn. After about a couple of weeks of going to see Clinton Lane or Bishop Lane and attending church, I decided I wasn't going back to D.C. I left the apartment I had. I didn't take anything with me but some clothes on my back. I left everything. I said, fuck it. Gone. And I tell you, 3 years in Jacksonville, got my life straight. Never looked back after that. In that time since 2006, I've used IT, you know, computer works, take me all over the country. I've lived in Jacksonville, Philadelphia, Vegas, D.C., Maryland, you know, all over. And it's kind of like my story. So, this is basically where I've been. It's a basic introduction. So in there you heard a lot of stuff. Know the time to visit the channel. You're going to see some videos as I break down some stories of all those years. You'll learn a lot about me. You'll learn a lot about the people I grew up with. Some of the people I still love. The hood can be like its own fucking soap opera. And making it out, it's an achievement in itself. Staying out is your greatest accomplishment you can make. So, I ask you stick around. Subscribe to the page. You'll hear some funny stories. You'll hear some inspirational tales. You'll hear a lot of stuff. Stick with me. I'm a future actor. Might even write a book about this. Because I got some stories to tell. Well, the ones that they'll allow me to tell. Because I ain't going back to jail. Alright, peace. Sarit.